I'm going to say something that might be hard to hear, but it's going to save you years of wasted effort. The push-up you've been doing your entire life is probably wrong. Not slightly off, not a minor technical issue, wrong in ways that explain exactly why you've been doing them for months and still not getting stronger, still not building chest, still feeling it more in your shoulders than anywhere else, and still wondering why this supposedly simple exercise isn't giving you the results everyone says it should. Today, I'm going to fix every single one of those problems, and by the end of this video, the push-up you do tomorrow will be a completely different exercise from the one you did yesterday. The push-up has a reputation problem. Because it requires no equipment, no gym, no cost, and no instruction to begin, people assume it requires no technique. They drop to the floor, push themselves up and down, count the reps, and consider the exercise done. And that assumption is why so many people plateau at the same rep count for months or years, why so many people develop shoulder pain from an exercise that should be building shoulder health, and why so many people get far less from the push-up than this extraordinary exercise is capable of delivering. Here is the reality. The push-up, performed correctly, is one of the most sophisticated upper body exercises in existence. It simultaneously trains the chest, the anterior deltoid, the triceps, the serratus anterior, the core, and the stabilizing muscles of the shoulder girdle. It demands full body tension, precise joint alignment, controlled eccentric loading, and active shoulder blade movement that most people have never been taught to produce. Done right, it builds genuine strength and muscle. Done wrong, in the way most people do it, it builds very little and slowly erodes your shoulder health in the process. We are going through 7 mistakes today. 7 specific errors that compound on each other to turn a powerful exercise into an ineffective one. For each mistake, I will explain exactly what is happening anatomically, why it hurts your progress, and the exact correction you need to apply. Watch all 7, because in my experience, most people are making at least 4 of them simultaneously and not realizing any of them. 1. Your elbows are flaring out to 90 degrees. This is the mistake almost everyone makes, and it is the one that does the most damage over time. Look at the average person doing push-ups, and you will see their elbows pointing almost directly out to the sides, forming a T-shape with the body. It looks like a push-up, it feels like a push-up, but it is loading the shoulder joint in a way the human shoulder was not designed to bear. Here is what happens when your elbows flare to 90 degrees. The humerus, the bone of your upper arm, is now externally rotated and abducted, meaning it is pointing out away from the body. In this position, the supraspinatus, tendon of the 4 rotator cuff tendons, is being compressed against the acromion, the bony roof of the shoulder joint, every single time you lower yourself. This is called shoulder impingement. Do it for 100 reps a week, and you are producing 100 repetitions of controlled micro-trauma to the rotator cuff. The rotator cuff does not have the blood supply to recover from that quickly. Over weeks and months, that becomes chronic inflammation, then pain, then injury. There is also a strength and muscle consequence, not just a health one. With elbows flared to 90 degrees, the primary muscles being loaded are the anterior deltoid and the upper chest. The majority of the pectoralis major, the large, flat muscle that makes up most of the chest, is most effectively recruited when the elbow is angled closer to 45 degrees from the body. Flared elbows are literally redirecting the work away from the muscle you are trying to build. The fix. Bring your elbows in. The correct elbow position for a standard push-up is between 30 and 45 degrees from your torso, not 0 degrees, which would be a close grip push-up, and not 90 degrees, which is the flared error. Think of it this way. If you were to look at yourself from above, your arms should create a slight arrow shape pointing forward, not a T shape pointing sideways. The cue that works for most people is this. Imagine you are trying to bend the floor apart with your hands, pushing outward laterally with your palms without actually moving them. This external rotation cue naturally draws the elbows into the correct position and simultaneously activates the external rotators of the shoulder, which protect the joint throughout the movement. Your first session with correct elbow position will feel unfamiliar.
you will likely be able to do fewer reps. That is not weakness. That is your chest being properly loaded for the first time. The difficulty is the point. 02. Your hips are sagging or piking upward. The push-up is not a chest exercise. I know that sounds strange after we just spent 3 minutes on elbow position and chest loading, but hear me out. The push-up, in its correct form, is a moving plank. It is a full-body tension drill where every muscle from your heels to your shoulders is under coordinated load simultaneously. The moment your hips sag toward the floor or pike up toward the ceiling, that full-body tension is broken, and you are no longer performing a push-up. You are performing a partial upper body movement with an unsupported, compromised spine. Hip sagging is the more common of the two errors. It happens when the core and glutes are not engaged, which is almost universal in people who have never been cued to brace during push-ups. When the hips sag, the lumbar spine goes into hyperextension, an exaggerated arch. This compresses the posterior elements of the lumbar vertebrae and places the lower back in a structurally vulnerable position under load. Doing high-volume push-ups with sagging hips is a reliable way to develop lower back pain over time, which is a genuinely absurd outcome for an upper body exercise. Hips piking upward is less common but equally damaging to the exercise. It usually happens as a compensation for weak shoulders or core. The body instinctively raises the hips to redistribute load away from the struggling muscles. The result is that you are now essentially doing a downward dog-shaped movement that achieves almost nothing in terms of upper body strength development. You complete the reps, you feel like you trained, but your chest, shoulders, and triceps have been let off the hook entirely. The fix. Before every single set of push-ups, establish full body tension before you move. Start in the top position with arms extended. Squeeze your glutes as hard as you can. This immediately stabilizes the pelvis and prevents the hip sag. Brace your core as if you were about to be punched in the stomach. Squeeze your quads. Now your body is a single, rigid plank, not a flexible chain with a weak middle. Maintain that tension throughout every rep of every set. The cue that works for the hip sag is to think of your body as a wooden plank being lowered toward the floor and raised away from it. A plank does not bend in the middle. If it does, it is not a plank. It is a broken board. If you genuinely cannot maintain a straight body line for a full set, your core is the limiting factor, not your chest or shoulders. In that case, drop to your knees for the remainder of the set. A perfect knee push-up builds more strength than a sloppy full push-up. Build the core strength progressively until you can hold the plank position for 60 seconds before you expect it to maintain it through an entire set.
03. You are not going all the way down. Partial range of motion is one of the most pervasive problems in all of fitness, and the push-up is where it appears most blatantly. Watch anyone who has been doing push-ups for a while, and you will often see a confident, rhythmic movement that descends about halfway and comes back up. They can do 30, 40, 50 of these. They look strong, but put them in front of someone who asks them to go chest to floor on every single rep, and the number collapses to 8 or 10. Those 30 to 50 reps built the endurance to do 30 to 50 half reps, not the strength to do a full push-up. The science here is unambiguous. Muscle growth and strength development are maximized when a muscle is trained through its full range of motion. In the push-up, the full range means descending until your chest makes contact with or grazes the floor, a position in which the pectoralis major is at its maximum stretch. Research on training at long muscle lengths consistently shows superior hypertrophy compared to training at short muscle lengths. The bottom position of the push-up, the full stretch of the chest, is where the vast majority of the muscle-building stimulus lives. Cut the range of motion in half, and you are cutting the stimulus in half. There is also a neurological dimension to partial range training. Your nervous system learns strength within the range it is trained.
If you train exclusively between 50 and 100% of the range, you will be strong in that portion and weak in the bottom half. This is why people who do hundreds of partial push-ups still cannot perform a single controlled descent to the floor. They have never trained that portion of the movement, so the nervous system has never built the connections to manage it. The fix: go all the way down, every single rep, no exceptions. Your chest should graze the floor at the bottom of every push-up you perform from this point forward. If that means reducing your rep count by half, reduce it. 10 full-range push-ups produce more strength and muscle than 30 partial ones. That is not opinion. That is physiology. To build confidence and strength in the bottom range specifically, practice slow negatives. Lower yourself from the top position to the floor over a full 3 to 5 seconds. Do not push back up. Simply lower with maximum control and start the next rep from standing. 4 sets of 5 slow negatives will develop the bottom range strength you need to make full push-ups feel natural. Place a small folded towel or a thin book under your chest as a target. Each rep counts only when your chest touches the target. This removes any ambiguity about whether you are reaching the bottom position and makes honest self-assessment impossible to avoid. 04. You are not finishing the rep at the top. Most people know the mistake of not going all the way down. Almost nobody talks about the mistake of not completing the rep at the top, and it's just as costly for different reasons. When you press yourself up from the floor to a fully extended arm position, the movement is not finished. There is one more crucial action that almost everyone skips: the protraction of the shoulder blades. Protraction means allowing your shoulder blades to spread apart and push forward around your ribcage as you reach the top of the push-up. Your upper back rounds very slightly. Your shoulders push away from the floor an extra inch or two beyond arm extension. This final action is the full range of the serratus anterior, a fan-shaped muscle that runs from the ribs to the inner edge of the shoulder blade, and it's one of the most important and most neglected muscles in upper body training. Why does the serratus anterior matter so much? Because it's the primary muscle responsible for keeping the shoulder blade flat against the ribcage during pushing movements. When it's weak, as it is in almost every person who skips the top of their push-ups, the shoulder blade wings out away from the ribcage under load. This winging creates instability in the entire shoulder joint, reduces force transfer through the pressing movement, and is a direct cause of the chronic shoulder pain that afflicts so many people who do high volumes of pressing work. There is also a chest development consequence. The final inch of protraction at the top of the push-up represents approximately 30% of the total range of the chest's adduction, the movement of the arm crossing in front of the body. Skipping it means you're training through roughly 70% of the chest's range and stopping just before the full contraction. It's the equivalent of doing a bicep curl and stopping before you finish the squeeze at the top.
The fix. At the top of every push-up, once your arms are extended, take one more deliberate action. Push the floor away further and allow your shoulder blades to spread apart and round forward. Your upper back will dome slightly upward. Your chest will feel a deep squeeze as it reaches full contraction. Hold this position for 1 second, then lower into the next rep. The cue that works for most people is reach through the floor. Imagine the floor does not end at arm extension, that you can keep pushing through it. That image naturally produces the protraction and serratus activation you need without requiring a detailed anatomical understanding of every rep. If you have never done this before, your serratus anterior is almost certainly weak, and the movement will feel strange and small at first. Within 2 weeks of consistent practice, you will feel significantly more chest activation during every set, and the long-term stability of your shoulder will improve measurably. 05. Your head is dropping forward. This is the subtlest mistake on the list, but it is one of the clearest diagnostic signals that everything else in the push-up is also going wrong. When the head drops forward during a push-up, when the chin precedes the chest toward the floor, it reveals a fundamental breakdown of full-body tension. The head dropping is a compensation.
the body is trying to create the illusion of range of motion without actually achieving it. By dropping the chin and head forward, the face gets closer to the floor faster, making the movement feel like it is going further than the chest is actually traveling. It is unconscious cheating, and it is not giving you any benefit while actively straining your cervical spine. The cervical spine, the 7 vertebrae of your neck, is designed to be in a neutral position under load, meaning the natural curve of the neck is maintained. When the head drops forward and down repeatedly under the load of a push-up, the upper trapezius tightness, upper neck stiffness, and the kind of tension headaches that are characteristically worse after exercise is an injury in slow motion. The fix. Your head is part of your plank. The straight line that runs from your heels through your hips, your spine, and your shoulders does not stop at the shoulders. It continues through the back of your skull. Your gaze should be directed at the floor approximately 6 to 12 inches in front of your hands, not at the floor directly under your face, and not forward at the wall ahead of you. That gaze angle produces a naturally neutral cervical spine position. The cue that eliminates head dropping instantly for most people is simple. Imagine you are holding a tennis ball between your chin and your chest. You cannot drop the chin without losing the ball. Hold that position for every rep of every set. The neck remains neutral, the head stays in line with the spine, the full body tension is maintained. 06. You are applying no progressive overload. This is the mistake that is not about form at all, and it is the primary reason people plateau with push-ups for months or years despite training consistently. Most people find a rep count that is challenging, let's say 15 push-ups, and then proceed to do 15 push-ups every session, every week for the next 6 months. They're consistent, they're showing up, they're doing the work, and their body is not changing. Because their body adapted to 15 push-ups in the first 4 weeks, and every session since then has been maintenance, not growth. Your muscles grow in response to stress that exceeds what they are adapted to. This is the principle of progressive overload that we covered in video 1 of the FitPulse series, and it applies to push-ups just as absolutely as it applies to a barbell bench press. If the push-up you are doing today is not harder in some meaningful way than the push-up you were doing 4 weeks ago, you are not creating the conditions for adaptation. You are exercising, you are not training. The challenge with push-ups is that most people don't know how to make them progressively harder beyond simply doing more reps. And while more reps is a valid form of progression, it stops producing muscular hypertrophy stimulus above around 25 reps per set, and instead produces muscular endurance. To keep building strength and muscle beyond that point, you need to increase the difficulty of the movement itself, not just the volume.
The fix. Apply double progression to your push-ups. Pick a rep range, for example, 8 to 12 reps per set. When you can complete 4 sets of 12 with perfect form, move to a harder variation rather than adding more reps. This is the same progression system outlined in the video 06 push-up ladder. Standard push-up leads to close grip push-up, leads to decline push-up, leads to archer push-up, leads to pseudo-planche push-up. Each step is significantly harder than the last. Each step builds strength and muscle the previous step no longer can. Alternatively, add load directly. A weighted vest, a backpack with books, or a resistance band looped across your upper back and held under each hand adds external resistance to the push-up and allows you to continue applying progressive overload within the standard movement pattern indefinitely. Add a tempo variable. Slowing the lowering phase to 4 or 5 seconds dramatically increases the difficulty and the muscle-building stimulus of a push-up you have already adapted to. A 4-second negative standard push-up is harder than a fast standard push-up with weight added. It does not require any equipment, just discipline. 07. Your hand position is destroying your wrists. Wrist pain during push-ups is so common that many people assume it is simply a side effect of the exercise, an unavoidable discomfort to be endured or worked through. It is not.
Wrist pain during push-ups is almost always caused by poor hand positioning, and correcting it eliminates the pain reliably and immediately for the vast majority of people. The most common hand position error is flat palms with fingers pointing forward and the wrist bent at 90 degrees under the full load of the body. The wrist joint in this position is in full extension, bent backward, under significant compressive force. Most people's wrists lack the dorsiflexion flexibility to comfortably maintain this position for extended sets, and the result is the familiar burning, aching sensation at the base of the palm that convinces many people push-ups are bad for their joints. The second common error is hand width. Hands placed too wide push the elbows into the flared position we covered in mistake 1. Hands placed too narrow shift the load heavily onto the triceps and away from the chest. The correct width is approximately shoulder width or just slightly wider, aligned with the outer edge of the chest, not with the outer edge of the shoulders. The third error is fingers pointing straight forward with no rotation. Turning the fingers slightly outward, around 15 to 30 degrees, naturally produces a small amount of external rotation of the humerus that brings the elbow into the correct 45-degree position we discussed in mistake 1. The hand position and the elbow position are directly linked. Fix one, and you begin to fix the other. The fix. Spread your fingers wide on the floor before every set. Your fingertips, the base of your fingers, and the heel of your palm should all be in firm contact with the floor. This distributed contact reduces the concentrated pressure on the wrist joint and increases the stability of the hand position. Think of your hand as a tripod rather than a flat surface. Turn your fingers slightly outward, 10 to 30 degrees. This single adjustment brings the elbow into correct alignment, reduces wrist strain, and improves chest loading simultaneously. For many people, this one change alone resolves months of wrist pain. If wrist pain persists despite correct hand positioning, perform push-ups on your fists with a neutral wrist position, knuckles on the floor, wrists straight. This is a well-established modification used in boxing and martial arts training that completely eliminates the wrist extension load while preserving the full benefit of the push-up. Push-up handles, or parallettes, serve the same purpose and allow a neutral wrist position throughout the full range of motion.
Now let me walk you through exactly what a perfect push-up looks and feels like when all 7 corrections are applied simultaneously. This is the push-up you will perform from this session forward. Before you lower yourself to the floor, set your position at the top. Hands slightly wider than shoulder width, fingers spread wide and turned slightly outward, arms fully extended, wrists directly below your shoulders. Take a breath and set your body. Squeeze your glutes hard. Brace your core as if you were about to take a hit. Squeeze your quads. You are now a plank, rigid from heel to head. Your gaze is directed at the floor 6 to 12 inches in front of your hands. Your head is in line with your spine. Your elbows are pointing at 45 degrees, not outward, not tucked to 0. Now, lower yourself. Control the descent, do not drop. The eccentric phase is where a significant portion of your strength and muscle building stimulus lives. Lower over 2 to 3 seconds, maintaining every element of tension you set at the top. Your elbows track at 45 degrees throughout the descent. Your hips do not sag, your head does not drop. You descend until your chest grazes the floor. Not your stomach, not your hips, not your chin, your chest. At the bottom, pause for 1 full second. Feel the stretch in the chest. Do not bounce off the floor. The pause eliminates elastic rebound and forces your muscles to generate the full force required to return to the top from a dead stop. That dead stop is where genuine strength is built. Now, press. Drive the floor away from you explosively. As you approach the top, feel the chest contracting. At full arm extension, do not stop. Push further. Allow the shoulder blades to spread and round forward. Feel the deep squeeze of the serratus interior and the chest at full contraction. Hold 1 second. That is 1 rep. Every rep of every set should look and feel exactly like that one. That push-up, that single, complete, correctly executed push-up delivers more muscle stimulus than 10 of the rushed, partial, flared elbow repetitions most people are doing. You do not need more push-ups, you need better push-ups. Now that your form is corrected, here's how to structure your push-up training to maximize strength and muscle development going forward. For the first 2 weeks after applying these corrections, drop your rep count by 30 to 50% and focus entirely on perfect execution. If you were doing 20 push-ups per set, do 12. Every rep must meet every standard we covered today. This recalibration phase is not a step backward, it is the foundation of every step forward that follows. After 2 weeks of perfect form training, apply double progression. Choose a rep range of 6 to 12 per set. Perform 4 working sets per session. Each week, aim to add 1 to 2 reps to at least one set. When all 4 sets reach 12 perfect reps, move 1 step up the progression ladder. Close grip, decline, archer, or weighted as appropriate. This structured approach will produce more strength and muscle development in the next 3 months than the previous year of unstructured push-up training. Train push-ups 3 times per week with at least 1 rest day between sessions. The chest, anterior deltoid, and triceps need 48 to 72 hours to fully recover between heavy push-up sessions. Training them daily without adequate recovery produces fatigue, not adaptation. 7 mistakes, 7 fixes, 1 exercise transformed. Elbows at 45 degrees, not flared to 90. Hips locked in the plank, not sagging, not piking. Chest to the floor on every single rep, no partial range of motion. Full protraction at the top, finish the rep completely. Head in line with the spine, not dropped forward. Progressive overload applied consistently, not the same reps forever. Hands positioned correctly, spread, slightly rotated, protecting the wrist. The push-up you perform after this video is not the same exercise as the push-up you performed before it. It is harder, it is more effective. It builds more muscle, develops more genuine strength, and respects your joints instead of eroding them. 10 perfect push-ups will change your body in ways that 100 imperfect ones never did. If this video opened your eyes to something you've been missing, share it, because almost everyone you know who exercises is making at least 3 of these mistakes right now. Subscribe to the Fit Pulse for more science-backed breakdowns of the exercises everyone does and nobody fully understands. See you in the next one.